Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Disney Debate, where Kat Mack and I talk about Disney and Disney in general. So, how's it going, Kat?
I'm doing great. Really great, actually. I watched an old movie I haven't seen in a long time with my good friends, and we riffed the hell out of it.
That's always a fun time. Yeah. So today, we viewed Snow White, and my God, that was a trip down memory lane.
Oh, so true.
Uh,
I've been watching that movie for as long as I can remember. Like,
for many people, that is one of the first Disney films they see.
oh, definitely.
Mhm.
That's like one of the first things the parents like pop on whenever they need a movie to distract their kids with.
It's like, hey, look at the pretty animals, look at the pretty birds, look
Oh,
at the pretty bunny.
look at the pretty short people.
But yeah, so what was your first impression upon seeing this film for the very first time, and who knows how long?
It's been about probably a few years, because like unless you're with kids, how often do you really watch like animated films like this on a daily basis?
Hmm.
But I was well, first of all, it was a big nostalgic trip for me, because just seeing like this wonderful animated film again, and also I was very happy while watching it. I noticed a lot of things that I hadn't noticed before. Found a lot of funny stuff too that
Hmm.
I had overlooked before. Before my mind became all dirty and in the gutter. But yeah, I enjoyed it I enjoyed it immensely. Being able to watch it again with my friends, and they enjoyed it too. It was a lot of fun, and you know, excuse me. And was it I actually did some more research on it because I knew about the whole like process of how Snow White came to be and all the crap that Disney had to go through, but seeing what they did, how much money they spent, what lengths they went through in terms of animation, it's truly impressive, and you could tell that Walt Disney was a really big thinker and a really big risk taker with what he managed to do with this movie because it paid
Hmm.
off immensely.
I have to agree. He must have been really passionate for this film, and viewing this for the first time, I haven't seen it in over 10 years. I have to say.
Really.
Um, yeah, I mean, I caught a glimpse of it when my sister brought home the remastered version, but I haven't seen the full thing in a long time. And so, looking back at it, like you said, there's a lot that I hadn't noticed before, and that kind of went over my head when I was a kid. Um, but one thing I really, really notice in looking back at this is just the amount of passion put into this.
Hmm.
I mean, the film opens up with Walt Disney personally thanking everyone involved with the film, and you got to understand that. First of all, at this time, hiring animators was a hard thing. This was
Hmm.
made in 1937. This is right. Is this during the Depression?
Yeah, well, actually, the development process began in 1934, so that's right after the peak period of when the Depression hit. So
Hmm.
things money wise were really bad everywhere, and
And
Walt went through a lot, to get this
yeah.
project off the ground. He even put out a mortgage on his house in order to pay the animators to do this.
And you said they had what $1,500,000 it
Hmm.
cost to
Yeah.
just to make this film.
Yeah, and when you think about it in terms of, the 30s and during the time of the Depression, that is a shitload of money.
Yeah,
That is a lot. And
it's ridiculous. And even back then, no one had even thought this could be possible.
right, cuz animation, is very hard to do. That's why they were always kept short, probably no longer than 5 minutes. But and then Disney wanted to do like an hour and a half film, and a lot of people thought he was nuts. And in fact, Snow White at the time was known as Disney's Folly because they thought that he was taking a stupid risk and it was going to blow up in his face and he was going to become bankrupt and stuff. And even his own brother and wife were trying to talk him out of doing this because
Mhm.
that's how iffy they were about the whole project. And, it's kind of understandable, given his goal and the technology and money that was available at the time.
And just saying that this is the first major animated feature in theaters and longer than the average cartoons. And even then, like, cartoons were only made for kids. Like, no one was really making these huge movies for kids besides maybe a few major companies, but they weren't animated and they weren't really geared towards kids mostly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing with cartoons is, yeah, they were for kids, but, you know, being a sort of like a new thing at the time, you know, adults, of course, were watching them as well. Because you'll always hear about adults, you know, old people be saying how fond they were of, like, the old-fashioned Betty Boop cartoons and the Looney Tunes and all that.
Bugs Bunny. Like, everyone talks about that. I don't think my parents were around for the Disney cartoon era. For Disney's actual cartoon run, but they always talked about seeing Bugs Bunny and Popeye and stuff like that.
So cartoons weren't at the time specifically aimed toward kids. You know, it was something for everyone, assuming that they were done right. It was only like in the recent years, like from the I guess from like the 70s on, that they were starting to aim for just specifically kids. So now, you know, a lot of adults today look down upon animations as being just a kid thing. You know, regardless if, you know, it could be good or, you know, have adult material in it. So.
And a lot of the Disney properties, starting with Snow White, I think, had subtle adult things happening that you really don't notice until you view it at an older age.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, my friends and I were making so many dirty jokes throughout it. That's how perverse we are.
It's like, here, have an apple. Yes, creepy old lady, I'm going to have your apple.
Bad touch.
But let's actually dive into this film. So, first of all, what do you think of the story as a whole?
I think it's a pretty well-written story. You know, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, they have decent characters, a decent climax. You know, there's conflict. So, in terms of a story, it is really well written. But then again, you know, this is a Grimm story, and most of their stories are really good, despite being, you know, also really dark.
Yeah, it's adapted from Grimm's fairy tales, and for me, it is pretty simple. Like, it's well written, but it is like a pretty simple fairy tale. Mm-hmm. The way it's structured, it's standard. There's conflict. It's a standard 3-act structure where you have conflict, some resolution, climax.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, you could pretty much sum up the plot in like a few sentences. You know, princess is in trouble, seeks out little people for help. The bad guy seeks her out, almost kills her, and then the love of her life saves her. Mm-hmm. You know, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing to really note is that the only reason this plot is set into motion is because this evil queen has to be the fairest person in all the land. She's so vain that she looks in the mirror every single day and she asks, "Am I the fairest one of all?" And if she hears otherwise, she goes out and kills that person.
Wow, she is bored. Seriously, get a hobby.
I mean, it doesn't appear that there's anyone else in this kingdom besides the dwarves.
Nobody. There's like this giant castle and this vast countryside, and you never ever see any other people aside from the queen and the hunter. Yeah. Because there's no servants, there's no guards, there's nobody. And it makes you wonder if, like, you know, the queen killed all of them because the mirror kept saying, "Oh, that person's fairest. Oh, that person's fairest."
Or maybe she turned them all to animals, and that would explain why the animals are helping Snow White.
That would explain a lot, actually. You know,
oh my God, I've cracked the case.
Yeah, that would explain why they're so smart, and you know, they know how to do all these chores and stuff. But then why didn't the spell get broken?
Because lemons.
Because fate is cruel.
But yeah, I mean, it is your standard simple fairy tale story, but for what it is going for, I mean, it is adapted from a fairy tale, and to put it to the full screen They did have to put in a little bit of padding.
Yeah.
There's two major padding scenes. There's one where they're washing their hands. It's like, let's stop the film and teach people how to wash their hands.
Yeah,
And
that. I mean, it's a funny scene. You get to see their hijinks and pretty much like see, really like see the dwarfs' ignorance when it comes to cleanliness and all that. But it really wasn't needed.
yeah, I mean, it just begs the question of why didn't they wash their hands before if they have the spigot? Like, oh, we don't know how to wash our hands, yet we have this equipment to wash our hands right out back.
It's particularly interesting because there was actually a deleted scene from Snow White in which the dwarfs get together and decide to build her a bed. That way they can have their beds back. So, and plus, just be nice to her and everything. And it's strange how that got dropped, but the soap and washing scene stayed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that.
And then there's also the other padding scene where there's kind of dancing around, which I like a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, at least it shows them, interacting as normal, and, they're not just treating her as, like, a servant or, as a mother or something like that. They're actually genuinely having fun with her. And, we could just get to see them that, they're not all work. They know how to have fun and everything, and, their love of music. So. But
at the same time, I do not like that song. As a nice segue, I think we should talk about the songs next. Because, well, really there isn't too much to talk about the story-wise. We're going to get into it, I think, more with when we talk about the characters. But, so, yeah, musical numbers. The movie opens up with her singing about how she wants to find a prince.
Right. And that's kind of what all princesses sing about, though, when you think about it. Because that's pretty much what they're groomed to do, is to be brides for princes.
And for what the song is, it isn't bad. But her Snow White as a singer, I have to say, is not the best. Yeah. She has this Betty Boopish, high-pitched voice.
Yeah, I mean, I know it was considered, really beautiful at the time. Because I know, like, a lot of movies during that time period had women singing with the shaky, squeaky voices.
The falsetto, but it's not really like a trained falsetto type voice back. I guess maybe it was trained falsetto back then, but really it's not the best falsetto.
No, it doesn't do it for me, because like I have like all the songs on like an iPod setting and like a mix CD, and I always tend to just skip over Snow White stuff just because I just don't like hearing her sing it at all. It sometimes makes my ears bleed, just how, especially when she goes really high.
And the thing I notice is that the prince come in and he has the prince comes in and he has only like 3 different bars, and he's so much better. And I'm just like, why can't you have him sing about how he's trying to find her, and it would be a much more proactive song.
Yeah, and at least would give him some character and depth and all that, but no. They only show him at the beginning and at the end, and you never hear of him between then.
And it just makes me wonder, like, what was he doing all this time? Was he facing, like, the perils of Rosalia or something like that?
Well, was it towards the end, in, like, the dialogue that is written during the transition scene between when she falls asleep and is put in the coffin, it says that like he had searched far and wide for the maiden, and then when he heard that there was one asleep in the glass coffin, he decided to seek her out.
But wasn't there? I don't know if it's just me or if I had seen a different version, but there's one where Doc explains why they put up the coffin and they didn't insert that whole like writing in.
It said in the transition basically that they couldn't bear to bury her in the earth, so they made a glass coffin so they could always keep watch over her, which is extremely creepy because that means you're basically watching a body slowly decompose in the sunlight.
Well, see, I remember seeing a version. I know it wasn't this one, but I remember seeing a version. Maybe it was when I was a kid or something, where the doc had said. Doc was just basically like, we want to, she's too beautiful to bury, and so we should make a glass coffin so we can always, see her and look after her.
Yeah, that too, but that's still extremely creepy.
It was much more sweet when he said it and explained it, but yeah, it is kind of creepy.
Yeah, and what was I gonna say?
Yeah, back. Oh, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, I remember now. I wanted to say something about the prince. There was actually another deleted scene, believe it or not, and sort of alternate ending, if you will, where the prince was actually used a lot more proactively. They basically had it where he revisited the castle looking for Snow White, but when he found out she wasn't there, he demanded the queen bring him to her, but instead she put a spell on him and basically made him her slave, and then used him as a way to seek out Snow White and kill her.
And they probably cut that for animation reasons.
Most animation, time, and I guess it was considered too dark or something.
It was too dark, and yet they opened the film with, "Oh yeah, bring me her heart."
Yeah, but they didn't really do it, and they never show that the heart she is presented with.
That's true. It was a pig's heart instead, but
she throws it to the ground. Ew.
You brought me the heart of a pig? That's gross. I wanted the girl's heart to taste its courage.
How am I supposed to make with this?
Going back to the music, while we're there, the second song is basically padding. Actually, it's just sing a tune, and it just it's very bland. It's very it's not good.
Oh, the one where she's singing to the animals.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not good.
Yeah, I never liked that one. Even when I was a kid, I always skipped over it just because it's basically, cutesy, cutesy, cutesy. Oh, look at the little, cute little animals, cutesy, wootsy, wootsy.
Mm-hmm. But the thing I have to say about that particular scene is that, first of all, running through the forest had really great animation, but then you get into this scene where all the animals pop out, and you see how good the animation is. Mm-hmm. They have to animate so many animals at once. They're all coming out at once. And this is the first major scene that they're used. Mm-hmm. So it makes me think just how much time and effort they must have put into this production.
Yeah, having to animate the same bunnies and deers and squirrels over and over again in all those scenes at once. That must have been, I just imagine the animators just pulling their hair out, be like, if I gotta animate one more damn chipmunk, I'm gonna fucking throw this thing out the window.
And to be honest, the animation is the highlight of this movie.
Oh, no doubt. They definitely went all out on it. There's everything is just looks so good, and everything, it ranges from cutesy looking to terrifying, and it does it so perfectly. And
the background animations, while static, are drawn beautifully, and everything that is animated is it's moving. You don't see any clipping, except for one part where, if you look very closely, when the dwarves are coming out of the tunnel, they just appear out of nowhere. They don't show them actually draw distance. They just kind of pop onto the screen.
I didn't notice that.
I had to start it again because I was watching on YouTube, and I looked at it and I thought it was maybe a glitch with my computer, and I brought it back, and nope, they pop right onto screen out of the tunnel.
Wow.
That's the only glitch I can think of in terms of animation, but really they put a lot of their effort into this. The detriment is the sound equipment, because first of all, the lip flaps do not match up that much. But then again, that's a testament of times.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that too. It's either delayed or the flaps don't exactly match the words. So, but for the most part, it's not that noticeable.
Yeah, it doesn't take you out of it, I have to say, especially because it is something that you can't avoid when we're talking about the first major animated feature, and the sound equipment back then was not really the best. I mean, from what the way it sounds, it's pretty much old-time radio, in terms of the equipment they had back then. And so they did the best with what they had, and I thought for what they did have, it was very good.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, despite the songs and, the flaws with the singers and everything, it's still pretty impressive for that time.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the animation part, one thing that I noticed that I hadn't noticed before watching is that in the Dwarves' cottage, all of their stuff, like their tables, their furniture, the doors, the sink faucet, everything is carved in the shape of a face or an animal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like they have their flutes and it's shaped like a fish, and stuff like that. So it's like you'd think they'd like get up and start like talking or something, like Beauty and the Beast, where everything will suddenly burst into life.
It's like Pee-wee's Playhouse almost. Everything talks, even the floor. It actually like raises questions though. I mean, the dwarves are depicted as a bit like neglectful and slovenly when it comes to like their living arrangements. And also the fact that they don't know how to bathe properly. But at the same time, you see their house, which is decorated rather specifically. It's like, okay, we're gonna build this house and we're gonna put in all these like special decorations, have like an animal theme going and stuff. Okay, we're done. All right, we'll wash the dishes in about a month or so.
And another thing I wanted to know is why do they mine why do they even go to the trouble of mining for diamonds? Like, you don't see anyone else in the film that they would interact with to sell the diamonds to.
I guess they're hoarders or something. I guess they just, and it's actually a bit stereotypical when you think about it. Dwarves mining for diamonds. But I guess I don't know. I guess they barter it with some far off business people or something, or maybe they trade it. Who knows? Or maybe they just do it out of boredom because they like
maybe they eat
stuff.
The diamonds.
Mm-hmm. Because by the amount of diamonds that you see them mine up, by that logic, they could actually buy the kingdom.
They probably are the richest people in the land.
Mm-hmm. And yet they live in that tiny little cottage in the middle of nowhere. They're
content.
True. I mean, it's not a bad cottage.
Hey, it's off the radar for the tax service over there.
True.
I don't want to pay my taxes.
Here, take this diamond. Go away. All right, so should we get into characters?
I think there's more songs that we still have to talk about.
Oh, right, more songs.
The next song that comes up is "Whistle While You Work."
Oh yes, now that song I actually like.
And honestly, the only two songs of the film that I really enjoy are "Whistle While You Work" and "Hi Ho."
Yes,
and those are back to back. Those are pretty much like the best part of the musical side of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's mostly because they're catchy, they have simple lyrics, and they're repeated. And it's something that, people can sing along to. I'm not going to sing along to "Someday My Prince Will Come." One, because I'm not a girl. Two, because it's just like...
It's shallow.
It's shallow, it has random lyrics, and it's about a very misogynistic song. Mm-hmm. But Hi Ho is just like, hey, everyone, we have diamonds, let's go home. And it's just a fun little song. Like, that's the same thing. "Whistle While You Work" is just having fun while doing work. And I think they replicated that in Mary Poppins when they, brought up in every job that must be done, there is an element of fun.
Yes. It is funny because Hi Ho only has one lyric, and it's just repeated over and over again.
But it's so fun.
Yeah, and people remember that so much more than, like, most of the other songs in the film, or even other films for that matter. It's like, you go up to people and you ask, oh, what's your favorite Snow White song? And they're like, oh, Hi Ho.
and you ask them, like, what's your favorite Bedknobs and Broomstick song? They're like, what? I'm like, come on.
That film is so underrated.
I know. I agree.
But
And then like you ask them what your favorite Mary Poppins song is, and they don't mention Feed the Birds.
Or a Spoonful of Sugar. No, they always say that freaking supercalifragilisticexpialidocious song.
Gag me with a spoon. No, it's a good song, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, honestly, the way the songs are in Snow White, it goes, the first two are just kind of bland. It's setting up the film, they're not the best. The middle two are very awesome, and they're very catchy, and they're very upbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And the last two, it's Silly Song, which is just kind of panding. If you do you consider Hand Washing Song a song?
That I don't consider that a song because they don't sing. It's more like talking in rhythm.
Yeah. So yeah, the last two songs, Silly Song, is just kind of padding. It's like, hey, we got nothing to do, let's sing around. But honestly, it's annoying to me. And then it's Someday My Prince Will Come, which, as I've said, it's a very misogynistic song where it's just saying, I'm going to sit around and the prince can come and save me and I'm just going to be helpless.
Yeah.
And now here's where we come to the debate part of the Disney debate. Someday My Prince Will Come is very much a product of its time. Mm-hmm. Back then, there was misogyny. Back then, there was the women's suffrage movement had not arisen yet. And so women were oppressed. And now, do we consider this Walt Disney's fault? I mean, he put his heart and soul and backing into this project, but I don't know. I don't really, say, oh my God, Disney is evil because of this one song.
No, I don't blame Disney at all, because again, it was it was the mindset of people at the time. Plus, like if you've ever sat down and read a traditional, fairy tale story, that's pretty much all that the princesses do. They sit around, they get into trouble, and then a prince comes along and saves them.
And it's not just America that did this at the time. In fact, this is a German novel, first of all. But in every single country at some point, or even still today, had misogyny and had a lot of antagonism towards women. Pretty much they thought women's job was to cook and to clean and to be the sort of person. And so we had a lot of people had been brought up with this idea in their minds that the men would go out and get the bacon, he would get the food for everyone, and the women would cook and clean and keep house. And that is, I don't really think that's, well, it is bad for today's times, but technically that's the way we evolved as humans, where we started out, and this is the way things happened. Because they needed to happen this way. We needed to have food and we needed to have shelter. So the men, the stronger of us, went out and found food, killed something, and brought it back, and the women cooked it. And that's just kind of how we evolved. And that's just a holdover of when we were cavemen, when we were just starting out as a species. And it's something that, as we grew more sophisticated and intelligent, that we kind of threw away and decided, hey, well, women are just as smart as men. In fact, a lot of them are smarter than men.
Well, see, there is a case that you can argue in Snow White about they kind of, move away from the misogyny point. Because, at one point in the film, after, the Dwarfs has agreed that, Snow White will stay, provided that, she cooks and cleans for them and everything. When she's about to, set up dinner and everything, she tells them, dinner's not done, but you have time to wash your hands. And they're, trying to get out of it, and she, pretty much puts her foot down, and she's like, go outside and wash it, you're not getting anything to eat. Mm-hmm.
And another big thing to note is that the queen is very proactive. The queen is a woman, and while she is vilified, I don't think it's because she's a woman. The fact that she is a woman doesn't really come in much into play. It's just that she's a very strong person, maybe very very jealous, but she is a strong woman. And people don't really latch onto that fact. They're like, "Oh, no, 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 Phil, you are very misogynistic, and I don't want my kids seeing this." And in all honesty, even if it wasn't made in the 1930s where we had misogyny, it's set in medieval times. It's set in a time where women were not viewed as well as they were back in the 1930s. Like 1930s, there was somewhat less. There was a lot less hatred towards women than there was in medieval times. Medieval times, men could do whatever they want.
True. Plus, it's kind of funny that they actually have a misogynistic character in there, in the form of Grumpy. And throughout the film, he starts off actually, plainly stating that he hates women, but
and their wicked wiles.
Yeah, wicked wiles. But by the end of the film, over the course of that, he softens up towards Snow White and ends up caring for her just as much as the others do.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's showing that, that, you can have your views on, just because you have your certain views on women doesn't mean they're right. And, that if you take the time to actually know a person, you'll see that there's more to them than just looks.
And I honestly, overall, I don't think the film itself is misogynistic. There are certain parts that, I don't like that brings up the idea of misogyny, but really it's not about that. The film is kind of just about, it's really about Snow White trying to get away from the evil queen. It's a simple tale, and everyone lives happily ever after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's not meant to be more than that.
True. I mean, there's really no lesson learned in this. Aside from don't bite the apple that a creepy old hag gives you.
Don't trust strangers. They might poison you with spiders.
Yeah, because, the only real person who goes through a character arc in this is Grumpy. Snow White doesn't exactly learn anything. She ends up nearly screwing herself over and getting herself killed, but she still, wakes up and gets the prince in the end.
Mm-hmm. So, and she's none the wiser, too. She's told that it's a magic wishing apple. I was reading the comments, and I was just like, wait a second, this guy's right. She could wake up and be like, oh, my wish was granted.
That is funny. Be like, the old hag told me I'd find you, and they're like, what old hag? Oh, you mean the one that tried poisoning you? Yeah, that turned out to be your stepmom.
In fact, according to this version of the film, he hadn't even really met the hag.
Yeah, he just shows up, finds a passed out broad, gets a little sugar off of her, and then she comes away to live in his castle and happily ever after.
I still don't understand how he knows that kissing her will break the spell.
He doesn't. He just wanted to sneak a kiss.
Oh, necrophilia, yes.
And I'm sorry, but I hate the ending. I hate the ending so much.
All right, Kat, go into your rant about what should have happened.
Okay. Well, as you all know, the way that the ending is, Prince kisses Snow White, she wakes up, he puts her on his white horse, and they ride off into the sunset, happily ever after. That ending is bullshit. Because here's the thing, if I woke up after being in a coma for God knows how long, the first thing I would do is ask some questions, like, what the hell happened? Who the hell are you? And why the hell does my lips taste like fish sticks? So, assuming that somebody told her about what happened, she would think that, why the hell am I with you? You just showed up and just kissed me. The dwarves are the real heroes here. I'm going to go with one of them. And that's what I think should have happened. She should have went with the dwarves. One of the dwarves, all the dwarves, whatever. Go to like someone who deserves it, because the dwarves, they took her in when she needed someplace to stay. They protected her from the queen at great risk to themselves, and they had the good sense to not bury her, and presented the opportunity for her to be revived. So,
and also, it seemed like the movie was grooming Grumpy into being the person she ends up with.
Yes, that should have happened, because out of all the relationships between all the characters, because with Snow White, she never interacts with her stepmom except for when she's the wicked hag. She only interacts with all the dwarves as a group, but, the only person she gets one-on-one time with alone is Grumpy. And like I said, he starts off, hating her because he apparently has a problem with women. I mean, who knows, maybe he had his heart broken in the past or something. That would have been, something interesting to look into. And you see that the more she interacts with him, you see she's trying to get him to like her, through little means and stuff, and, even goes out of her way to make a special pie for him.
Yeah, she writes his name on a pie.
I know.
That's the only one that she shows. She doesn't put anyone else's name on a pie. She doesn't make any more pies that we know of.
I mean, that would have been so sweet, because make her realize that, hey, maybe instead of waiting around for some picture perfect Prince Charming, I'll actively seek someone that I have chemistry with. And I thought she and Grumpy had great chemistry together. Because she even messes with him a bit. When the first time she sees him, she's like, "Oh, you must be Grumpy." Kind of messes with him a bit. And even when he as they're leaving for work, and he's telling her, not to let anyone in the house, and she's like, "Oh, Grumpy, you do care."
and he actually does smile after that too.
Yeah, and he actually sees that, she's a nice person. She has a sense of humor. She's someone, to seriously consider being with. But it never happens.
And she's just like, oh, "Bye, guys. Thanks for everything. I'm going to go into the big luxurious castle. Bye."
And that is why I hate that ending so much. Because if I were in a position, I'd be like, okay, 7 of you, you're my new husbands, okay? We're going to form a harem, and, we're going to, I'm going to be your wife, and you're all going to be my 7 husbands, and, I'll be with each of you one day of the week, and it'll be awesome.
And we're not going to follow the Mormon code, though. Those Mormons, they're bland. Crazy people. No, we're going to follow our own religion.
Oh, yeah. But seriously, that's what I think should have happened. Frankly, I'm surprised that no other company has, tried to retell the story of Snow White, with one of the dwarves being a potential love interest, because every single version you see, they always drag in a prince, and more than half the time, he doesn't do crap except for the beginning and the end.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Even the sequel, the unofficial sequel to Snow White, Happily Ever After, again, you only really see the prince for the beginning and the end. And in the middle part, he's some, real creepy hooded guy.
But yeah, well, I think this is a nice segue to go into the characters from here, since we have been talking about a little bit about the characters. But let's go individually, starting with the Queen. What did you think about the Wicked Queen?
I like her. In terms of a villain, she's very well done, especially since this is the first time they've probably, really made a well-rounded villain. Because, she obviously has her strengths and weaknesses, in terms that, she's very deceiving, manipulative, plans out stuff, she's very proud, very vain and everything, but it's also, her undoing. Because, she knows she's the best, but at the same time, that also, makes it really easy for people to piss her off.
Mm-hmm. I think the one weakness she had was her motivation, and her goal, her motivation and goal is basically she's jealous of Snow White, so she's going to kill her. Mm-hmm. And she's evil and all that, and she has all these different spell books, and she has all these different potions and whatnot, and she's very interesting at that. But her motivation, I think, is a little bit lacking. Then, I don't like you because you're more beautiful than I am. It's kind of a petty type thing.
Yeah. It also, like you said, falls under misogyny, where women detest the other women because, they're more beautiful or, more desired.
But at the same time, I don't think that's misogynistic because women in real life are like that.
True. You know, it that is true, unfortunately, but you know, usually when women are jealous of that, it's because they're in, a less advantaged state, like if they're poor or, they're alone or whatever. But, she's a freaking queen. She could probably get any guy that she wanted to. But no, she just wants to be the prettiest in the land, and that's it. Doesn't matter.
One thing I asked you this earlier is if she has all these spell books and stuff, why does instead of poisoning Snow White, why does she make a potion to make herself look fairest in all the land?
Yeah, a beauty potion. She has a potion to make her ugly. Why can't she make a potion to make her more beautiful?
It's kind of a plot hole, I think.
Yeah, it's baffling because I guess you can assume that she's so determined to prove that she is the fairest in the land that she feels she doesn't have to improve herself. Well, all she has to do is just take out all other competitors, but it still is a pretty big plot hole.
But overall, I think the Queen was effective. I liked that. I loved the transformation scene where she turns into the old hag.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
It's a great scene. It doesn't need all these special effects. It just it's well done. It's well animated. Like her hair turning white and everything.
And actually, there was a tradition started with that. When you think about it, almost every princess film, and a lot of other related films as well, have a transformation scene.
Even Beauty and the Beast and stuff like that.
Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella,
Little Mermaid.
Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Aladdin. All of those films, they all have transformation scenes, and it pretty much started with this one. I mean, there's no, magic pixie dust or anything, and no one's turning into an animal, but it's still very well done.
I liked her in her old hag form.
Oh, yeah.
She was very creepy and very, you could tell that Snow White was being kind to an old person, but at the same time, I'm just like, she sounds so creepy. Why are you listening to her?
Well, you could tell at times she was visibly scared by her. You could see her backing up against a wall at one point because, she's just so intimidating looking.
But I think where she actually went with it was when the old woman was attacked, and I think the way she's reacting, because she turned herself really old, she might really be in pain.
It's possible, but then again, getting pecked by birds is painful in general.
That's true. Crafty birds.
She needs a coat hanger.
Birdemic.
I think the only fault misstep that she took, because she did accomplish what she set out to do. Her only thing was that she ignored the antidote that could possibly save Snow White.
Well, I think that's in tune with her character, is that she's so full of pride that she's like, oh, there's no way I could fail.
True, and when it is a bit logical when you think about it, because there actually is a way. If someone kisses her, she could wake up. But wait, she's going to be dead and buried anyway. No one's going to kiss a dead person.
And no prince is going to randomly walk by and kiss. Oh wait, we have to have a film. Let's shoehorn this. And it's a bad ending, I have to say. A lot of people have pointed this out. But yeah, so overall, I think the Queen was an effective character, not the best Disney villain in any regard, but definitely an effective one.
And I want that dress.
I want a cape that can billow out like that.
I wanted that dress, and I want that cape, and I want that crown. You will get it for me.
No.
You meanie.
Make me a sandwich. We were talking about misogyny earlier, weren't we? No, I kid, but I'm a feminist, so yeah, I don't believe in any of that stuff.
Good. Better not be. Crap out of you.
But yeah, onto Snow White. What do you think of Snow White as a character?
In terms of character, she's pretty bland. You know, she's the typical nice princess. You know, rather naive, rather innocent. You know, and her looks are really deceiving too, because you know, apparently she's supposed to be 14 or something, but in some ways she looks a little older.
She looks like one of those the women of that time period where they were all. She has way too much makeup, and first of all, but she definitely looks like the type of woman who would be in her 20s at that point, where they're not really made up to be the sexy, seductive people that you see today, where it's just more like a humbling outfit.
Right, and she actually looks kind of like a flapper girl when you think about it. But, I actually find it interesting that, you know, looks like she's wearing makeup, but makeup wasn't invented back then. So I guess she was naturally born with that somehow.
Lips red as a rose. Oh, God.
What did you...
What has science done?
She made her lipstick with the blood of her enemies.
But in all honesty, I think she's a very bland character.
True. Yeah, like I said, there's not much to her other than being very nice and, you know, a bit naive.
She's a goody-good. She's like, basically, oh goody me. Oh dearie, this forest is so scary. Let me run through it. But all these nice animals and birds, let me take care of them.
Right.
That's her outlook. She doesn't have a personality beyond that and wanting to find a prince.
Right, and like I said, the only time that she actually does seem to have a bit of a personality is when she's with Grumpy. You know, because she has a sense of humor. She teases. You know, she can be like, she could also be commanding when she wants to be. So that's like the only time you ever see like a hint of a personality from her.
And other than that, she was kind of one note, and she was kind of a means to an end. She was means to move the plot forward and get her to meet the dwarves.
Pretty much, because the dwarves are really the main characters of this film.
So. And moving from that, what do you think of the dwarves?
Oh, the dwarves are awesome.
I think the dwarves are the high point of the film. The moment they get on screen, they're singing their opening song, and they're just all happy, and they all have their unique personalities. And while they have their personality traits, they have that thing that describes them, but they're not one note.
Right.
They're not just that one quirk. They have their personalities.
Some of them can be one note, though, when you think about it, like Sleepy. The only time you ever see him is when he's drifting off. He really doesn't have, like, any notable dialogue other than when the animals are trying to get them to go back to the cottage, and he just randomly says, oh, maybe the queen has Snow White. For
no reason. Like, I jumped to that logic.
And he doesn't even seem to care at that point. He's just like, oh, maybe, you know, you know.
I mean, Happy has a very big personality, and it's beyond just being happy. I mean, you see him, like, generally talking. He isn't always laughing. You see Doc. Doc has a definite personality. And his quirk is that he messes up words, but he definitely has a personality that he's very intelligent.
I actually don't understand that, though. Why Doc?
Because he's the one who's supposed to be very smart, and he has a speech impediment, I think. And so that's the humor involved in it. I mean, Grumpy has a very big personality, and we see clearly in the film that it's not just that he's grumpy all the time, and especially after he gets kissed by Snow White.
True, he just has a really big chip on his shoulder, but it's shown that, you know, he can change his tune, though, so he's not just that constantly throughout the whole film.
And the others, like, I mean, my favorite character is Dopey, because he's just so funny. He's such a funny character.
And actually, while I was watching the film, I was starting to think that maybe his name was a little misleading. Because when you see him actually being Dopey and all that, it's usually because the others are making him do stuff that they themselves don't want to do. But other times where he's, you know, not part of the group, he's actually doing, like, stuff for himself. You know, like when for instance, when Snow White is preparing to go off to bed, and all the others are at the bottom of the stairs, wishing her, a good night's sleep and everything. He actually sneaks away from them and grabs the only pillow that is down there.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a dumb person. Maybe he has an impediment or something. That's something I don't think it's controversial.
He has Silent Bob syndrome.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think there should be too much controversy over Dopey. I mean, they don't treat him any different. They don't treat him any differently than the others.
But I feel they do kind of. He takes a lot more punishment than they do.
But it's because of the quirk that he's kind of clumsy.
Yeah, but there are scenes where you see them actually stepping on his head, or throwing him out of their arms, or at one point while they're washing, Doc is trying to scrub their heads with a broom, and he's trying to get away from it, and Doc actually hits him on top of the head with the broom, so he falls into the water, and you can see him visibly drowning as he just ignores it, just starts scrubbing his ass.
But I mean, overall, I don't think too much attention should be paid to it. It's not it doesn't treat mental retardation as a bad thing.
True. I mean,
yeah.
And he doesn't do anything he's not full on retard.
Yeah, you can't go that way. I've seen Tropic Thunder, and oh my God, the full is bad.
Yeah,
Simplejack.
He's just for his namesake, lovably dopey. That's about it. So.
And he's a lovable character. Everyone likes him. He's a fan favorite.
Mhm. Oh, definitely, because he's the comic relief pretty much, and everyone loves the comic relief. Well, for the most part.
And for the most part, every one of the 7 dwarves has a quirk, but they still have personality, and they are really the stars of this film. More so than the prince, who doesn't do anything, so we're not really going to talk about him much, because we don't know anything about him.
Right.
More so than Snow White, who's kind of bland, and more so than the queen, even though the queen is kind of the catalyst to set things in motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, they should be the stars of the show, because they do the most, they have the most personality, and like I said, even one of them has a character arc. So, I heard they actually were going to be the focus originally for the movie, but they wanted to be about Snow White, since her name is in the thing. So.
Yeah.
So it's one of those unfortunate cases, where the side characters far outshine the main leads.
And that does happen sometimes in Disney films, especially early Disney films.
Right, specifically with films like Sleeping Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the 2 leads don't really do much other than.
And the 3 fairies are very funny.
The 3 fairies do everything.
Yep, so. It's pretty much the fairy movie starring Aurora.
So yeah, Dwarfs, totally awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
So
I totally make them my 7 little husbands.
So we have touched on pretty much every aspect of this film, the story, the characters, and everything. But after all this, overall, what do you think of the film? After viewing it again, after thinking about it like this, what do you think of the film?
I still find it enjoyable. It's the original cliche, princess fairy tale that everyone knows, and in some aspects it is kind of dated, but overall it's very impressive, especially for the time period it first came out of. It's still enjoyable for people to watch, because I know some adults that still watch it with their kids, even though it's a kids film. So it definitely has its rewatchable quality.
I think it's very nostalgic for me, but I think the big thing about it, as the nostalgia critics said, is there's so much emotions at play, and I think that's to credit the animation, is that you're looking at this animation and everything looks real, these animals look cute, and so they get an emotional response out of you. Mm-hmm. During the end scene, when everyone's tearing up and crying, it's really well animated.
Yeah, that's very depressing.
it gets to you, and so I think that's the real technical achievement of this film, is not only being the first animated film, but being such good animation.
Yes, no doubt. They really went all out, and it shows so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's the one that started it all.
So while some characters may be bland, but most of them are, like I said, the seven dwarves are really well done, and the queen has a very good showing. The sound quality may not be the best, but for the time, the animation extremely stellar, and the sound was the best they could do at the time. So overall, I think technically it's a very impressive film, even though it is kind of simple. But I don't think it was meant to be much more than a fairy tale brought to the big screen.
Absolutely, but it did a really good job. It set out to tell a story, and that's what it did. And that's what every good movie should do.
And it was the beginnings of the Disney Empire.
Yes, the start of the golden era.
If you look at the revenue, how things have changed, I was looking on Wikipedia when I was looking up things, and I don't know how much they initially started off with, but I was looking from like the 90s to today. Today they make like $38 million a year. In 92 they started off with like $5 million, and I'm guessing it just only increased from there. Especially because this year 1930 they only made one movie, but the next year they made a bunch more films.
Mhm. Oh, definitely. There is a handful, and then of course World War II happened, so that was put on hold for a bit. But even more films came out after that.
And especially because people wanted to forget the war. Like they're just
exactly.
like, don't think about the war. We want you to think about happy, cute little fun things. And and so, I mean, I think the main thing that Disney brings to the table, and it's something that everyone can enjoy and can give us an emotional response from the audience, especially through their animation. I think Disney animation is their pioneer thing. It's the thing that they do better than everyone else, and why they stood on top for a very long time.
No doubt. I agree completely.
Mm-hmm.
But
we will talk about that next time. Next time we are going to take a look at Pinocchio, the second animated film that Disney produced. And we're not just going to go through animated films. We're going to go through each individual film, the live action and whatnot. But this is the second film they produced in general.
And this is the movie that traumatized my childhood.
And I didn't latch on to Pinocchio that much. I don't remember too much about it other than I hate Monstro from Kingdom Hearts. That was the worst world. But
that whale.
I love When You Wish Upon a Star. I think that was their flagship song for a long time. And I think it's a great song. But we're going to go more into depth on analyzing what the song is about next time.
Next time you will find out all the things that scared me as a little kid. And that still scare me even now.
But anyway, this has been the Disney Debate. Thank you everyone for watching. If you have any comments, criticisms, concerns, or suggestions for the show at all, please leave them at zenithrule.blip.tv. That is my page where you can view everything that we're doing right now in podcasts and other whatnot. Or you can follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/zenithrule or twitter.com/EphraimTRabbit.
Yes.
And those are our handles. You can listen to our rambles and whatnot there. But anyway, I am Zenith Rule, and this is my good friend Cat Mac, also known as Cat T Critic,
also known as Ephraim T Rabbit. And we all bid you adieu. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching The Media Meltdown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. And if you like what you see, show your support on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Media Meltdown. See you all next time on The Media Meltdown.